make it clear what this case is about and what it's not about. Mr. Martin, who currently has a default judgment against him, in this case, had originally had a case, as I understand it, against him in federal court for where a $17 million judgment was entered against him approximately. Is that right, Mr. Capua?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that right, Mr. DeBose?
That's what I understand.
And this case is not about relitigating that case. Do you guys understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
What the issues in this case are going to be is to make a determination of what assets are Mr. Martin's and which assets are not Mr. Martin's. To make a determination, this lawsuit is about whether or not any assets can be collected on that $17 million verdict. Is that correct, Mr. Capua?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that correct, Mr. DeBose?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Let's go ahead and start off. We've had extensive pre-trials on this, so we don't need to revisit all of that. We pre-admitted quite a few exhibits. I never got the list from you, Mr. DeBose, about what your pre-admitted exhibits. Did you email us those?
I filed it last night, and I thought I had also emailed the copy to you. I will do that. It has been filed.
Can you have your assistant email Rhonda that, and that would make things go a lot more smoothly. So
Yes.
Let's go ahead and start off with opening statements. Mr. Capua, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Your Honor, as you have correctly stated, this case involves ownership of videos that were on the Futuristic Hub channel and are still on that channel, as well as the Wildcraft channel, and there are other channels as well involved in this litigation, which are Creamworks Animation, Top Trends, and Blocktastic. I will state in the beginning, Your Honor, that the primary focus of this litigation concerns the videos on the Futuristic Hub channel and the Wildcraft channel. Oh, well, with that said, Your Honor, here's what we believe the evidence is going to show. And Your Honor, before I continue, Your Honor, what the evidence is going to show in this case is that Mr. Brian Martin was very calculated and cunning with the way that he has operated his various YouTube channels, going back to, at least in this case, of October 25th, 2012, which is when the Futuristic Hub channel was created. We contend that the evidence will overwhelmingly show that Mr. Martin created this Futuristic Hub channel on October 25th, 2012, and that he has continuously operated this channel the entire time up to the present, although you may hear some evidence that Ms. Bone created the channel and the videos associated with it. We just do not believe it is so. The next date of importance is April 19th, 2013. That's when Brian Martin married wife number one, which is Chrissy Martin. After this point, Your Honor, the evidence will show that my clients and Mr. Martin and another gentleman, Marco Princip, entered into an agreement to operate and own the Video Games channel. And the Video Games channel was the subject of the previous litigation. But I only say this, Your Honor, so you have an idea about how the parties came into a business relationship. Well, in that federal court litigation, it involved fraud, conspiracy, and the alike causes of action, which resulted in a judgment against Mr. Martin and Mr. Princip for approximately $18,600,000. Also, another important date, Your Honor, is June 7th, 2016. That's the date that Brian Martin and Chrissy Martin formed Futuristichub LLC with the Texas Secretary of State. Why is that date important? Because, Your Honor, that was 2 months after the $18 million judgment in federal court. So this is the beginning of Brian Martin attempting to protect his assets, the videos, right? All right, so now we move on to the fall of 2018. And this is when Holly Bone travels from the United Kingdom to Dallas to see Mr. Martin physically for the first time. The evidence will show that Ms. Bone, who was 12 years old at the time back in 2012, met Mr. Martin online. In 2012, Mr. Martin was approximately 27 years old. So they had an online relationship for approximately 6 years before Ms. Bone elected to come to the United States in the fall of 2018. Also, Your Honor, what's going on in the background here is after the federal court judgment of April 2016, Mr. Martin appealed it to the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. And in 2018, that appeal was still pending. December 31st, 2018 is another important date because that's the date that Chrissy Martin, wife number one, leaves Brian Martin for good. With that said, Chrissy Martin then files a divorce proceeding on January 10th, 2019 against Brian Martin. As I stated a moment ago, on January 16, 2019, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals affirms the federal court judgment. March 18, 2019, just 2 months after Chrissy Martin files the petition for divorce, the divorce decree is signed by a Collin County judge. And then about 3 months later, June 4th, 2019, is when Brian Martin and Holly Bone married. All right, so Your Honor, we're going to fast forward to now the beginning of January 2020. This is important as it relates to the fraudulent transfer cause of action in this particular case. You're going to hear evidence that Brian Martin obtained a Swiss bank account, which was in the name of Chrissy Martin, from their divorce. And the proceeds from that Swiss bank account eventually made its way to Carolyn Martin. It's our opinion this was a way to defraud the judgment creditors. And you're going to hear testimony that Carolyn Martin purchased a $340,000 house for the benefit of Holly Bone in January of 2020. And what's interesting about this particular fact, Your Honor, is that at this time, Brian Martin and Holly Bone have been married approximately 6 months. Holly Bone had met Miss Martin maybe one time, talked to her on the phone a couple times prior to this transaction occurring. Yet Carolyn Martin purchased this house and the deed was in the name of Holly Bone only and not her own son, Brian Martin. We think it's for obvious reasons. Again, Brian Martin does not want any assets in his name. Fast forward to August of 2020, Holly Bone files a petition for divorce against Brian Martin. Ms. Bone claims that the reason for the divorce was due to this was the first time that she discovered the federal court judgment against Brian Martin, and it bothered her, and she did not want to be married to him any longer. 10 days later, on August 17, 2020, she files a notice of non-suit. And then just 4 days after that, Your Honor, on August 21st, 2020, you see that Brian Martin and Holly Bone enter into a post-marital agreement. This agreement is interesting, Your Honor, because the alleged purpose of this agreement was for Holly Bone and Brian Martin to declare that all of the separate property that each owned prior to their marriage and subsequent to their marriage was going to be considered their separate property. And in this postmarital agreement, there's an Exhibit A and B for Holly Bone and Brian Martin, which is supposed to contain the various separate property of each person. Now, Holly Bone is represented by an attorney, Your Honor, as it relates to this postmarital agreement. And what's interesting about this postmarital agreement, when you look at the Exhibit A for Holly Bone, because she's claiming in this lawsuit that she owns and created and started Futuristic Hub since 2012. Yet, Exhibit A does not include the Futuristic Hub channel or the videos associated with it. So one would have to wonder, why would that be? Well, we believe the evidence is going to show, Your Honor, that Brian Martin did not want the Futuristic Hub channel to be listed on Exhibit A, because then he would lose complete control of that channel and those videos if Holly Bone subsequently divorced him, which is certainly possible because she already filed a divorce petition one time. So then one would think, well, was the Futuristic Hub channel listed on Brian Martin's separate property, which would be Exhibit B, since we contend he created the channel in 2012 and all the videos thereafter. Well, interestingly, again, the Futuristic Hub channel was not contained on Exhibit B, which is part of this postmarital agreement. Why? It's obvious. Brian Martin did not want an agreement which confirmed that the Futuristic Hub channel was his separate property and subject to execution by the judgment creditors. So this agreement is critical because it left ambiguity regarding the nature of the videos associated with the Futuristic Hub channel. We contend it was done intentionally. So Brian Martin and Holly Bone, for that matter, can argue whether it was his property or her property because there's not an agreement in writing which they both signed. And basically the argument would be that depending upon what they were in and who they were with would determine how they were going to treat the videos associated with the Futuristic Hub channel. Excuse me. Oh, and also, Your Honor, one thing I wanted to mention, when Brian Martin and Chrissy Martin divorced in March of 2019, the Futuristic Hub channel was referenced in that divorce decree. And it stated that Brian Martin was the sole owner and it was his separate property, the Futuristic Hub channel, which does confirm in that divorce decree that he was the owner of the Futuristic Hub channel and all the videos and all the money associated with it. August 25th, 2020, Your Honor, that's the date that Holly Bone contends that she returned back to the United Kingdom because she was homesick. We contend she returned back to the United Kingdom because the judgment creditors were starting to heat up the collection of their $18,600,000 judgment against Brian Martin. September 23rd, 2020, Holly Bone creates Wild MC Limited. Wild MC Limited, Your Honor, is a United Kingdom entity where, according to the documents, Ms. Bone is the sole shareholder and sole board of director of this company. We contend that this was just another subterfuge. Ms. Bone and Mr. Martin are trying to shield the videos and the channel from the judgment creditor. It kind of reminds me of that movie with Tom Hanks, where he plays that FBI officer, and Leonardo DiCaprio, Catch Me If You Can. It always seems like in this case, Brian Martin and Holly Bone are always 2 steps ahead of us. But fortunately, we're here today because we have our day in court to show we finally have caught them. October 15, 2020, Your Honor. I'm sure you remember that day. That was the day that you entered a temporary injunction in this case. And we believe the evidence is going to show that subsequently to you entering that temporary injunction, Ms. Bone made multiple violations to that injunction by transferring videos, transferring money, withdrawing money from bank accounts, selling that Frisco piece of property that I talked about earlier, all in violation of the temporary injunction. And I don't think I have to go into Brian Martin and his violations of the temporary injunction. Obviously, there were a litany of them, which caused him to ultimately be found in contempt of court and his pleadings be stricken in this particular case. November 25th, 2020. It's another interesting date, Your Honor, because that's the date that Holly Bone signed a warranty deed selling the Frisco property. What is a little odd about this sales transaction, Your Honor, is in January 2020, Carolyn Martin wired almost $340,000 to Holly Bone to buy the Frisco property. Yet 11 months later, November 2020, Holly Bone sells the property for $250,000, a $90,000 loss. We contend it was just a way to funnel money without it making it through the judgment creditors. December 22nd, 2020. This was the date, Your Honor, that Holly Bone violated the temporary injunction again. And she did it by uploading the videos from the Futuristichub channel to the Wildcraft channel in violation of the court's order. And why did she do it? It's obvious. Because in December 2020 was the time frame that Google received the writ of garnishment because it was a collection process by the judgment creditors to start collecting on this monetization of revenue from the Futuristichub channel. And as you know, there was around $290,000 in the court's registry from that action. Well, Mr. Martin, Ms. Bone, did not want to continue to lose out on that monthly monetization revenue from the Futuristichub channel. So they decided to upload the same videos which are on the Futuristichub channel to the Wildcraft channel, which was already in existence. It contained other videos. So the evidence is going to show, Your Honor, that the 78 videos which are on the Futuristichub channel are now on the Wildcraft channel. So at least now Mr. Martin and Ms. Bone can still make money from Google. So from around January of 2021 to the present, they have made approximately $600,000, which to my understanding is a fair representation of that amount of money that they have received, which was the reason why in February of 2022 that the judgment creditors filed that application for temporary restraining order and temporary injunction against the Wildcraft channel because of all of the money that was being received by Mr. Martin and Miss Bone from the Wildcraft channel videos. A lot of them were the exact same videos that Google was monetizing on the Futuristic Hub channel. Your Honor, at the end of the day, the judgment creditors see the case like this. Mr. Martin is the puppeteer in this entire orchestration that he has. He did it through Chrissy Martin. You're going to hear evidence, Your Honor, where Brian Martin claims at one moment he was the owner of Futuristic Hub, and at another moment, Chrissy Martin was the owner of Futuristic Hub. Then you're going to hear, after he divorces Chrissy Martin and marries Holly Bone, that now Holly Bone is the owner of the videos and the channel. The reality is Mr. Martin wants to control the channel, the videos. We believe he's been doing it in this particular case ever since October 2012, and he's continuing to do it. And judgment creditors are requesting, Your Honor, that after you hear all of the evidence today, that you order a permanent injunction against Brian Martin and Holly Bone for the Futuristic Hub channel, the Wildcraft channel, the Top Trends channel, Blocktastic channel, Creamworks animation channel, because we believe all these channels and the videos associated with it are still being operated by Brian Martin. And even though you may hear evidence that, oh no, that's not true, it's really Holly Bone's ownership of some of these channels, Your Honor, we believe that the evidence is not going to show any of that. And lastly, Your Honor, I do want to say, we also are going to have some testimony from an expert. And this expert, Mr. Athanasios Posantis, is going to testify that as an expert of cinema 4D software, he has reviewed approximately 120 videos. 80 videos, which I've been discussing, which were on the Futuristic Hub channel and then uploaded to the Wildcraft channel, plus another 40 videos, which are currently on the Wildcraft channel. In his opinion, although Miss Bone does have some animation experience that she certainly could have possibly been involved with some of the creation of these videos, he is going to tell this court without any doubt whatsoever that Miss Bone does not have the experience to create the vast majority of the animation that you see in all of the videos, which further supports the fact that Miss Bone is not the owner, she's not the creator of these videos. We believe it is Brian Martin. It's always been Brian Martin, and it always will be Brian Martin. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything you need me to screen share, Mr. DeBose?
I don't think so.
Okay. You can proceed, Mr. DeBose.
This case is very much a story about Holly Bone, who is a gifted, creative, charming young woman, very articulate, very intelligent. But she has autism, and her childhood, as her father testified, was quite miserable. Her mother abandoned the family when Holly was 4 years old. Her older sister, I think, was about 9 at that time. And her father, and she saw her mother once in the next year. And that's all that she saw for the rest of her life. Her father decided to continue to work and take care of his kids. Now, in Britain, that decision is a lot more difficult to make than in the United States, because their system of welfare is so sufficient that there are families that have been on the dole generations long. But being the kind of guy he was, he's a man works with his hands, automotive mechanic, had the same job for 32 years. He's the chief mechanic at the place that he works at, and he wanted to keep going on that. When he dropped off Holly and she was going to school, he would look back and he would see how miserable she was. He could not stand to look at her face. It was so filled with sorrow. Because in school, she was bullied and she was disciplined for things that she didn't understand, which is typical of autistic people. They do not understand societal norms. And she continued to be miserable until when she was 12 years old, she started making animated videos. And her dad was there. He saw her making them. He saw her, she told him that where she was putting them up was Futuristichub. So he spent money to get more expensive computers that she could use to do this. And before she had started making animation, she lived in her bedroom, basically. She didn't go out. She only had one friend from school, which again is not atypical of autistic people. Now she was happy. And it was the first time her father had seen her happy and wanted to keep her happy. He wasn't terribly interested in the videos that she made, but he saw that they were, they were being made, and his daughter was happy. She's a very talented, very bright young woman. You are going to see in this case videos that Ms. Bone created for the examination of the expert, in which she sets out a number of different tasks she does on the computer, and the joy that you see on her face when she's doing it is she's obviously completely enjoying it. You look at it as a grandfather, I look at it as a very happy grandchild doing something that she really enjoys doing. The reason she started doing this, she was a Minecraft game player. And the on that site, people can meet together, form groups. Apparently, I don't know about these games, but I understand that you can get groups playing the game against one another, with one another. And in order to enable that, there is a site where people communicate back and forth. At this time, Brian was managing various channels on YouTube. His gift is SEO, as search engine optimization, for people who post videos on YouTube channels. And we will have two witnesses, Kyle Lomax and Cameron Grant, both of whom worked with him, and he increased substantially the number of people who were looking at their sites, which increased the income that they were making. But that's what he did with a number of channels. He realized back in 2012 that Minecraft was really a big deal. Lots of people were playing the game, particularly young people. But he had the idea that animating with the blocktastic style, all block-headed people, would be very sellable on YouTube. And so he was looking around for somebody to do that kind of animation, and he met Holly Bone. Didn't know how old she was, recognized that she was was bright, interesting, articulate. They were communicating, not face to face, obviously, it was simply communications on the internet. And once she started doing things, he started helping her out. One of the things she couldn't do on her computer was the final stage of a video. And the final stage is called rendering. But rendering is a process that takes a big, powerful computer. It doesn't take any creative powers. The creative powers are all up to that point. Rendering takes what has been created and turns it into something, into one of the various forms that can be used to post a video on YouTube or have it for any other purpose. You basically take the prepared materials you've got, stick it in the computer, turn the thing on, and it just takes time to do. It takes time and energy and power. For a long time, Holly didn't have computer enough to do that. She only, she would prepare it, and then Brian would do the rendering. And in fact, one of our witnesses, Kyle Lomax, was in the room when Brian was talking with Holly on the phone and doing the rendering of her video back in, it was June of 2014. Holly was very shy. She didn't want to be known. She didn't want to be known publicly that she was the creator of these various videos. You can get, people can attack you rather nastily online, and she didn't want to be exposed to that. And I think I may have mentioned to the court my own personal knowledge about this. I had an autistic nephew, and I had lunch with him when he was 26 in California. I could see he lacked some social skills, but he had a college degree and had a job. 3 weeks after I had that meeting with him, he was harassed on the internet to such an extent that 3 o'clock in the morning, he lay his head on a railroad track and was decapitated. So people who are autistic are extremely vulnerable, and Brian recognized that vulnerability. And when he was managing her, she never gave him the password to get into her account. It was only she who had that. And what he did, she didn't have an AdSense account. Now, I think Your Honor knows about the YouTube Partner Program. If you get to a certain level of people who are going to your channel, then YouTube offers to that person, or they may be, the opportunity to become a YouTube partner. What that means is that if one becomes a YouTube partner, they are agreeing that Google can post advertisements on their channel. And YouTube then calculates how much advertising money is coming in, not to the channel overall, but to each video. Each video, YouTube keeps track of that, exactly how much advertising money is due to that channel, which is a question of how many people went to visit that video in the period of time in which the payment is made. I think they make monthly payments. So she allowed Brian to use his AdSense account for that. She was just doing it because it was fun. She was a kid. She was not in her majority, early teenager. She just did it because she enjoyed it. And she believed, and I think that's probably correct, that Brian was doing all this work for her, giving her all this assistance. He should reap whatever benefits there were. There are no records that I know of how much her channel and her videos produced. At a certain time, and you should know that Ms. Bone actually lives in two worlds that are not quite real. The first one is totally imaginary. She escapes into that at moments, and sometimes you'll see her very focused that she's there. And the other world that she's in is her world of videos. It's probably more real to her than real people around her. In that video system, her main character, Steve, main male character, is her husband. And he voices that. That's the one contribution he makes to all the videos is he voices the male characters. Now, there have been talk about pornographic videos that were on the site, and you're going to see little snippets of it. They're not pornographic in any serious sense. They're little block figures that are making motions. We'll show a little snap of that. And she made them, when she was like 13 years old, because to her, they were amusing. And, I think that's not unusual for a 13-year-old who first learns about sexuality to think that the whole thing is kind of strange and funny. But one of the things that happened, not immediately because of those videos, is she began to be seriously attacked on YouTube. And there was an attack on Futuristichub in particular. She was completely out of control. This frightened her, intimidated her. And what Brian did is he went online to say that he was the animator, to take off from her the force of the attacks that were being made. Now, at this time, again, Holly was a minor and she wasn't considering this as a source of income. There came a time when she decided that she should get more professional assistance with her channels. And in April of 2019, she signed up with a multi-channel network called Freedom Family Limited. It's a Hong Kong corporation that operates out of Dubai. Operating out of Dubai means if you do it right, you don't pay taxes to anybody anywhere. But in any case, that going to them increased the income of Futuristichub and to some extent the smaller channel of Creamworks Animation, where the first month she was in that system, which was April of 2019, she was making $21,000 a month. And then after 19 months, it was up to $100,000 a year. And at that point, the channel was shut down and she has received nothing from that. But they were very, very effective in getting that income. So, and why did she do it then? Well, she decided she was no longer a minor and she wanted to be more professional in her business. Both Kyle Lomax and Cameron Grant will testify that, this was really what Brian did very well, but it was what Freedom Family did a great deal better. Now, the chronology that the plaintiffs have presented has some flaws in it. The first time that Brian and Holly met was not when she came to the United States, but earlier than the date they have. He went to visit her in Britain. Now, one of the things that had happened in his life is once the judgment was entered against him, it destroyed his marriage. They no longer lived together as man and wife. They lived together as roommates. And his wife was terrified of the fact that perhaps her assets might be taken. And she was a very active YouTuber herself. She had 7 channels that she created. She had her own income. And she took her income and put it in a Swiss bank account. She has said, oh, she didn't know anything about it. There's a document creating the LLC by which that was done, which she signed, which has already been admitted in evidence. And she then, and they point out that in the divorce decree between Chrissy and Brian, that account was awarded to him. But by the time that account had been awarded to him, Chrissy had sent the contents of that account to Brian's mother. Their divorce decree was entered on 3/18/2019, and there are 3 transmissions from the Swiss bank account into Brian's mother's account. One for $102,000 January 22nd, one for $249,000 on January 22nd, and one for $28,000 on February 1st, all coming from Thorazil Enterprises, which is an entity that was owned solely by Chrissy. So the money that Brian's mother had was money not from him, but from Chrissy. And it was her money, and she did with it what she wanted. And she decided when she heard
Mr.
that.
DeVos, let me ask you this. So you're saying that Mr. Martin's ex-wife transferred money to his mother so that his new wife could get a house?
No, but he's not quite sure what he said, but they were talking, he and Chrissy, and he said, my mother has nothing to retire on. So she got a total of, I think it was much more than what was paid for the house. And that was, again, back in January and February 2019. She didn't buy the house until a year later. So, it was her money, and she did with it as she wished. And Christy has some of the things that she said in the temporary injunction here are just false. We have the documents that prove the falseness of them. In any case, to go back a little bit, as I said, Brian's first time Brian met Holly was when he came to visit her in 2018. And at that time, his marriage was not in any functional sense a marriage. It had been non-functional for at least 2.5 years. And he went as a friend. He worked with her. And when he did find out about her age, which is a couple of years in, he was astounded at how young she was, because she was so articulate, so intelligent. And I think Your Honor will see that when she testifies. Then after that, during that visit is when the attraction really occurred, when they were face to face. And they spent a few weeks together, and then Holly came over in 2018 to visit, did not stay that time, went back to Great Britain, and then came a second time to the United States, at which time they were married and were living in an apartment. And his mother had heard from him that it was not a great apartment, particularly for Holly, because it was very noisy and just, it was very disturbing to her. You know, they were right on the street. And he told his mother that he was in the process, that Holly was in the process of buying a house. And his mother then apparently responded to that and said, well, I'll buy that house. As Brian will tell you, his mother is a very giving mother. She gives out her money. She's done some very nice things for her other son, Kevin. In any case,
Yes, I want to make sure I understand the two sides' position on this. So the plaintiffs are arguing that the money for the house was given to Miss Martin by Brian, her son, and you're claiming that eventually went to Brian's new wife, but you're saying that actually came from his ex-wife, and then she gave it to her former mother-in-law to give to the new wife. Am I understanding your position on this versus their position?
Well, we got the documents that show it, but she was giving to his mother. I don't know for what purpose, because at the time that
the ex-wife was giving money to the mother-in-law.
Yeah, and it was prior. First, it was prior to their divorce. It was it was about a half a year prior to the marriage of Holly and Brian. So, you know, why she did it, you can ask her. I don't know that you'll get a straight answer, but you can ask her. I'll certainly ask her. But I don't know what was in it, and why she did it. I can only speculate, and I think we'll find it. But the documents are very clear on this. The document which creates this Thoraz's venture has her name on it, and it is, when you look at the bank account, the incoming money comes from this Thoraz's ventures, which her divorce decree says is entirely in her name. In any case, that's one of the things. We have a great number of documents that show that Google recognized that Holly was what they would call the owner of the channel. We have a huge number, massive number of their documents. And what we're going to do is we're going to search those documents for the name of Holly. When we do that, you will find there are 3 entries. Each one shows that Holly Bone is the owner of the 3 channels that are before the court that Holly is concerned with: Futuristichub, Creamworks Animation, and Wildcraft. All those 3, their documents say. Plus, there are lots of communications between Google and Holly, because she is recognized as what they call the owner. Now, we know that it is not ownership in any sense that you and I will recognize. It is a license. All it is a license to post things on YouTube. And their terms and conditions make it clear there is no ownership. There are no contracts. In other words, while they do pay money to people who allow advertisements on their channels, they are not obligated to do so. They can just yank it. You look into the terms and conditions, really, basically whenever they want it. And they did it in this case. They froze Holly's account, which caused, we know from what we were reported by Mr. Hurst, that what used to be $100,000 a month dropped down to $22,000 because what keeps the growth of these channels. And by the way, under Freedom Family, Holly went up to 3.35 million subscribers. So that means that every video she posted, every one of those subscribers gets noticed that there is a new video, and they would flock to the site. And that flocking means a lot of little things that go on to the register of YouTube. But there's lots of documentaries. We have records. She has created 551 videos. Everyone has gone through an entity called Aegis, and we have records of those. They're massive. And you will see every one of those, because that's how she puts it onto onto YouTube. And it started out Aegis. She got on late in 2019 because Freedom Family put her on. But what she does when she is putting up any video is she gives all the information to Aegis, who then says, this is Holly Bones' creation. And they then send it out and post it on the internet. Now, there have been charges that she's been violating the temporary injunction. First of all, she didn't know about the temporary injunction until long after it was entered. She was unaware of the proceedings. As your Honor knows, she was not served your order allowing special service of the materials. It was left at her home, which was vacant several months. So she had no knowledge of what was going on. The only time she really started to pay attention was when suddenly she lost her channels, and she sent emails to Mr. Is it Shot? I can't remember. Shot Mayor, no, Shot Lando, who said, I can't really help you. But it was then that she contacted me, and or in that it was that which motivated her to come to me. She was unaware of these, and also, Your Honor's temporary injunction only speaks to the income from the channels. It does not speak to no order until I think this last one speaks to the videos themselves. It is not like she took them down from one of the channels to use them. She has copies of everything she's made, and she was reposting them on a different channel, which it's not violating any order to do that. The orders did not cover the videos. Now, as you know, the channel is owned by a corporation in Great Britain. As far as I'm concerned, that is a serious impediment to a ruling against that that entity. It's paying tax on that, and I'll make an appropriate motion at an appropriate time. But I think the court is overstepping jurisdictional barriers to do that. But in any case, there is the expert that they are going to present has never given expert testimony before, has never given any opinion to anybody that based on what they have seen the person discuss about how they do things in their animation, allows him to determine whether that person is capable of doing animation. At his deposition, we stopped for a period of about an hour and a quarter where we played Miss Bones' instructive video. She says, here's how I do these things. And you'll see her working all over the board. When she was being quizzed in her deposition, she didn't have all that in front of her. She doesn't have all memorized what the names of all the things she's using. And you'll see that when you see her doing her animation. She pulls up the screen, says, oh, here the thing is. That's whatever. You know, she is not doing professional animation. She does it because it's something she enjoys and something that she has some skill in doing. You know, the person who has lost the most in this is Holly Bond. She's lost income which she may never recover, because that rising slope of what's happening with Futuristichub, that's been cut off. We don't know how much money Google is making on that, what they're taking, but they are, and who knows what would have happened in the future. And the bonds in the two TROs are $5,000, $10,000. That's her only resource. And so she's written that off. But I think, Your Honor, we'll see.
Mr. DeBose, you need to kind of finish up.
Okay.
We give you guys time limits, but I would think you would take this
yeah,
long,
I think okay. You will see that all the evidence, there is no evidence of anybody who's seen Brian, any credible evidence, seen him animating. And all the evidence shows that Holly Bone did this from day one. We have people from day one and thereafter. And that's really the heart of our case. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Call your first witness.